Hate Army General saying hate Army shit to Hate Army. If your name is Hate Army, there is no Hate Army, does not exist. Good vibes to the Hate Army. No. Show me the money. So we did them all, and then we went to my parents' house. All right. And this probably was one of the nicest things because my parents and I just had a really honest talk about how everything's going. So basically, it started off the conversation was that my mom wanted to pay for Kat and I to go on a honeymoon. All right. And there were no specific discussions about any of that. Or like where would it be or whatever. But basically, I told my mom, I said, like, I appreciate that. That's amazing. And quite frankly, I doubt Kat and I will ever be able to go on a honeymoon together. Just being very honest, at this point, unless I get myself out of the financial rut I'm in, there was no way that I would be able to go. But I told her, I mean, being straight up honest with you, and this is Kat and I had talked about this previously, it's a no-go. We can't go on a honeymoon. I'm in a situation where I can't take time away from work. Already this week that I was away for be with my parents and for the wedding, already I had probably lost thousands of dollars that I would have made on the streams and the videos on YouTube. And that's money I need to pay my bills. And I'm not in a financially feasible situation where I could take time away from work in a significant amount of time anytime soon. We're talking years now, probably before I'll be in a better financial position where maybe I could do that. So I told her straight up front, I said, not possible. Honeymoon can't, if you could promise us this, and I probably will never be able to take it. Okay. But you know my financial situation. And basically I told her about everything that's been going on here over the last few weeks, how I'd been doing multiple marathon streams, how much money I had raised, and based off of what my tax guy had told me, here's what's left. And then, by the way, the tax guy is going to bill me this much for doing my taxes. He's going to bill me this much to try to get me on the payment plan. I basically gave her all the financials of everything. All right? And, you know, sitting there having this honest conversation, my mom said, well, here's the deal. She's like, I need you to commit to a fact that you're going to do some life changes in the short term and the long term. Because you can't keep going like this. She looked at me and she's like, you're happy, but I can tell that you're running yourself ragged. I can tell that you are working yourself to the bone, Kat as well. And, you know, every time I call you or every time we talk on the weekends, you tell me about how the whole week is work. You never tell me that you get to spend time with Kat because you don't, right? And this is not the life that you're going to be able to live for your whole life. She's like, what are you going to do, you know, when you're 50, 60 years old? And you think people are going to still want to tune into your stream all day long? I mean, yeah, maybe I could still do like a part-time stream. But no, who's going to want to sit watching a 60-year-old guy play video games all day, right? In addition to that, you know, you're killing yourself financially because you have all these situations going on with the finances behind the scenes of everything. You're killing yourself to even make ends meet and pay your bills. How are you going to you can't. She's like, you've worked yourself to your limits. You can't keep going the way you're going. If you keep doing it, you're gonna have health problems. She says, look at us. Look at your father and me. You know, we are at 60 years old and are having these health problems where we could go in any day. She's like, but you are in your 30s and you're telling us the stress and shit you're putting up with. And she even said to me, she says, you don't have to justify yourself to anyone. She says, understand that. You choose to do it. She's like, the work you're in, being a public persona, you choose to force yourself to justify to thousands of people. She says, you should have been able to come out here to Connecticut, have a nice week with your wife, get married, and go home and not have to do a special event when you go home to explain the situation and people, oh, they're scamming and these assholes being shitheads on top of you. She's like, none of that should happen. That's fucked up. That's a messed up life to have. And, you know, you're in a situation where you have to do, you know, why? Who are these kids who are making fun of you on the internet that now they can actually concretely negatively affect your business? What kind of a life is this that you live? I said, Mom, you're right. You know, this is a situation that when I started to get into it, 10 years ago, I never thought that this is where I would be. It was a hobby. It was a joke. I didn't know I would lose my office job. I didn't know that I would have to try to flip YouTube into a living and then YouTube would fall through a million times and all that. So essentially, we had this very long and important conversation, okay? And where it ended up was a few things. The first is I realized, guys, I can't do this forever. I know that. And by the way, don't worry. It doesn't mean I'm quitting doing this anytime soon. I love it. But I know realistically, how long can I do this? I can't do this forever. She has a point. What could I do? Maybe another 10 years? Top 15 tops? Would people care when I'm 50 years old playing fucking video games? You know what I mean? And not to say that I couldn't try to diversify and do other things with my streaming. But I certainly don't think that it's going to be something people are going to want to tune into when I'm an older dude. You know, this is a younger generation. You know, they're not going to want to see me doing that stuff when I'm older. So in reality, what she's basically saying is that I need to not quit what I do, but I do in the long term need to figure out what else am I going to do. And she's right. I agree with her after thinking about it. Being completely honest with everyone. What I need to kind of do is get myself to a financial situation where I don't have to work all day on stream. Maybe where I can do like, all right, my finances are in a situation where now I don't owe so much that I have to literally make a ridiculous amount of money to pay the minimum payments on everything. And so that way I can stream less and I can maybe go get a job that's an entry-level job that pays less than what I make streaming, but it won't matter because I won't owe all this debt to everyone and I won't need to make that much money anymore. You see what I mean? But that's not a short-term thing. There's no overnight fix to you owe less money to the world. You see what I mean? So this is something that's going to come in time where maybe, you know, again, maybe within 10 years, I can fix things financially behind the scenes where I'm not bleeding every month financially. And I can stream less and I can go get another job and balance my life with that. And not to say, again, I don't want to quit doing this. I will do this. As long as it's within my power, guys, I will stream and share my daily gameplay and just fun experiences and interactions with you guys as long as I can, as long as people care. But nothing's forever. Nothing lasts forever. And my mom's right. She's like, you know, you're going to be our age. How are you going to be fucking doing this at 60? Look at us. We could barely move. And you're going to be doing this at 60? You're out of your mind. And she's right. So basically, I think that's what it's going to be is in the next 10 years or so, once I finally get myself in a situation where financially it's not so bad, I'm going to look to get another job of some sort. And, you know, it's going to be work because I've been out of the job market for 10 years almost. And it's going to be probably another 10 years. You know what I mean? Before I can make those changes, but I'm going to have to. Okay? The other thing is, and my mom's absolutely right, she says, you just can't keep doing what you're doing anymore. Like, if you literally cannot pay your bills, something's got to give. That's really what I have to do. And I committed to my mother that I'm doing it. I said, I will commit to you, Mom, that I'm going to do this because you're right. There's no way to pay everything anymore. And, you know, I have a wife. We have a life together. You know what I mean? And we have to make these changes because we can't keep going this way until something goes wrong. I was so afraid this year of losing my house because I thought I'm going to have to sell my house to pay my taxes. I realized I can't sell my house. If I sell my house, I can't work. This is the place I have to keep. Everything else goes to shit. This is the place I have to fucking keep. Okay? So, after this long... I mean, this was hours. This conversation was hours. All right? After this long conversation with my parents, finally, basically my mom said, well, since you can't go on the honeymoon, you know, how much do you need to get on this payment plan for these taxes and basically not get completely screwed over? I told her. She gave me the money. You know, my mom talked a lot of sense into me. I agree with her. It's just something that eventually, inevitably what I'm hoping to happen here is let's say within 10 years, it has to be a 10-year transition. My credit gets ruined, but because I'm not paying the crazy credit card payments anymore. I'm not paying for this black hole condo in Connecticut. That money goes towards taxes and pays my basic bills. And now things finally start to go down to the point where, let's say in 10 years, now I don't have to do full-time streaming anymore and I could go look for a job and I could balance that with the streaming until eventually we phase out and I'm in a position where I'm healthy and I'm not overworking myself. That's the plan. I don't know how it's going to go. You know, I'm sure there's going to be more ups and downs along the way, but that's the plan. This trip to Connecticut was literally, in more ways than just the marriage, was a life-changing experience for me. Okay? Show me the money. Docky Smurf asked the following. A few years ago, you had mentioned a conversation with your mother about establishing a 10-year plan to grow your business. It's actually completely incorrect. We'll talk about that in a moment. You also had mentioned over a year ago, you had an interest in growing your brand by eventually establishing a network of content for your businesses. As times change, quite frequently as a content creator, and as things stand now, where do you in your career as a content creator, where do you see it going in 10 years? Any steps you've taken to grow your channel moving forward? Is there any plan to one day retire from streaming, gaming, or other content? When you're able to retire from streaming, what would you like to have done with your channel and content? Is there any way that you'd like to finally leave the platform, whichever one that may be at the time? Let's actually, answer each piece, because actually some of this is incorrect information. Okay, so in 2019, things were a lot different. The world was a lot different 3 years ago. Let's be honest here. Okay, pre-COVID and everything. And in 2019, at that time, a few things were happening. Okay, number one, I'll just be honest with you. I really feel like there was a lot more toxicity towards me and my content then. All right, I do feel that. How can I say? Like, I've made a lot of improvements and changes in the last few years that people really like. And a lot of people who used to be hard on me have laid off and said, okay, he's changed, But back then was kind of some of the big hatred against me, right? And it was like every little thing I did, people were so angry and upset that even me going to Connecticut, visiting my parents, who are getting elderly now, are having health problems. They can't even travel out here to visit me anymore. So I made the plans that I was going to go visit them with Kat, who at that point was my fiance. But our secret plans that we didn't reveal to anyone is that we were going to get married while we were in Connecticut. Why did we have to do it as a secret? Because again, we were actually afraid that there'd be people who would actually try to fuck with our wedding and do fucked up things because people were so messed up with the things they were doing and saying about us on the internet. Okay? So that being said, 2019 was a different time. I was also in the midst of an insane amount of problems with my debt, where things were coming to a head. I couldn't afford to pay my bills anymore. A lot of things were happening. And basically, the journey to Connecticut that year was for many reasons. Yes, to see my parents in person, because I hadn't seen them for many years, and maybe to kind of say, maybe this will be the last time I see them in person because they have health problems. That was number one. Number two, to get married, because it made sense to get married. My parents, we had a nice meal together, had some family members that were there, as opposed to just trying to figure out something to do for ourselves out here, which probably wasn't going to happen. And then number three, to talk about the future. And I had a major conversation with my mother at that point. And essentially we came to two decisions. Decision number one was that I was going to basically declare bankruptcy. That there was no way that I was going to move forward with my life with the amount of debt that I had. I was never going to pay it off. So I had to declare bankruptcy. That was decision number one. Okay? Decision number two was that I was going to have a plan, essentially a 10-year plan, where I was going to try to phase myself out of being a YouTube content creator and try to get a real life job. Because basically things you could see, like the money I was making on YouTube was declining at the time. People were hating on me all over the internet and not liking me, shitting all over me. And we were at the point where basically the harassment had gotten so bad. Like my mother was like, how could you go on with your life, right? If this is going to be every moment is going to be harassment and messed up things happening to you. And I guess you're right. She's like, you're not beholden to people on the internet. Your life is your own. Yet the life that you're living, because you're on the internet with your job, you kind of are beholden to them, which is stupid. Why have your whole life be controlled by these people on the internet? And I was like, you're kind of right. So at that point, the goal was declare bankruptcy, all right, get to a point where things were a little bit more financially stable, and then eventually try to find a way to phase myself out of being a content creator on the internet. Okay? Okay. But what happened? Within less than a year, right, of me having that conversation with my mother, COVID happened. And what happened during COVID? Literally the world changed. Businesses, jobs, entire industries. And at that point, all right, if I had decided that I was going to quit content creation, right, and I started phasing out, and imagine if I had tried to get a real world job, I probably would have lost it. Imagine, right, if I had decided that's it for me, I'm going to just, throw in the towel and go get a brick and mortar job, maybe 2 brick and mortar jobs, because I would have to, because there's no way I'm going to get a job that's going to pay as much as me being a YouTuber, honestly. I'd be in a situation where basically I'd probably lose everything. I wouldn't be able to afford my house anymore. I wouldn't be able to afford I lost everything I have. And having bad credit, I don't even know where I would have lived, because when you have no credit, you can't even get like a background check passed to even get an apartment or anything. So I don't know what would have happened to me in my life at that point if I had made that decision. Oh, I'm just going to quit everything and start over. It might have been a disastrous choice for me. Okay? And what we actually saw during those COVID years, which I would say 2010, 2011 were probably 2010, 2011. Let's try that again. 2020, 2021 were probably the COVID years, right? What we saw, all right, is that basically all this stuff in real life is kind of weird. Like, out of all the jobs I've ever had, all right, the in-person stuff has never been stable. And I've worked fast food, and I worked at various retailers like Best Buy, Circuit City, places like that. I've had a bank job where I worked for a bank doing loans and credit cards, all right? I worked for a helicopter company for 4.5 years, a company that, by everything they were telling me, all the extra work and time and everything I was doing was setting myself up for a lifetime of success at this company. This was going to be my career forever. And then they laid me off. So everything I've done as an in-person job, all I've learned is as follows. It's never stable. It's never guaranteed. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter, how well you do. You're a disposable asset on a spreadsheet. You're just a number. You're a cog in a machine. And at any moment, if something goes wrong, you're get tossed out the back door like yesterday's garbage. And they don't give a shit, right? If anything, ever since I became my own boss, I've figured out that as long as I stay the course, as long as I remain positive, as long as I keep putting out content that's meaningful to people, my viewership, my followers, my true fans have followed me from YouTube to Blip to YouTube to Twitch to YouTube to Twitch to YouTube, back and forth all over the place, and they still follow me, they still support me no matter what happens, through thick and thin, right? So, if anything, what I've learned is it's not necessarily about it's not really about the job, it's more about me. As long as I stay true to myself and people like who I am, then they're going to follow me and support me no matter where I go. All right? Now, here's the thing. What I've come to realize in the last couple of years. There is absolutely no way that I can continue to be who I am on the internet, a full-time gamer forever. That's impossible. There's no way that's going to work. I'm going to get older, right? I'm going to become different. That's just what happens when you get older. As you age, things change. And what's going to happen is, ultimately, and what a lot of these other YouTubers have realized too, it's not about the constant grind of gaming anymore. It's more about having that variety where you have a commentary that people like. If people like you, then obviously they want to hear what you have to say about various different topics, right? So what you've noticed in the last year, right, is that I've veered away from doing full-time gameplay and I do a podcast every day, right? I've integrated new things into my schedule, React events, where you guys have really enjoyed the commentary that I've done on things like these documentaries. Tomorrow we're going to do a really special and fun advertisements React event that I think you guys are going to love. I can't believe the ads that are nominated are going to be so hilarious to react to. I can't wait. So because of this diversification that I'm doing, I'm actually realizing that what could happen is, even though maybe this channel will never really grow for gaming, I could maybe diversify myself in other ways, and those will see some growth. All right? And by the way, I'm happy with where I am right now anyway, as long as I'm not seeing a plummeting of following or a plummeting of support, then I'm okay. And I haven't seen that at all. Admittedly, this gaming season, we've seen a plateau, right? Where we're not seeing any influx of new viewers or anything for new releases anymore. But at least it doesn't mean I'm going out of business, right? So the 10-year plan originally was hey, within 10 years of 2019, let's make it that you no longer are doing this for a living as a YouTuber. You've got a brick and mortar job. COVID ruined all of that. Because if anything COVID showed us, nothing is for real. Nothing at any point, this whole, brick and mortar shit could just go away. Any sickness, anything could just shut everything down. So you can't rely on that. Okay? And by the way, I would have to do brick and mortar like retail jobs and stuff. No one's going to pick me up in an office. I've been out of the industry since 2010. Who the hell's going to pick me up for like a customer support job or anything in the helicopter or aviation industry? No one. I've been out of the job for too long. You see? So basically, that's out. There's no way I could do an in-person job and be successful because that's just not what I've experienced it anymore. But what the 10-year plan has essentially evolved into is within 10 years, diversify myself enough on the internet that now I'm not just the gamer guy anymore, right? Now I'm known for other things, right? You can watch my podcast. You can come to a React event. You could see Phil do other shit and not even care about the gameplay, and that's all well and good. And maybe because of that, there'll actually be some potential for growth as opposed to, oh, it's just Phil sitting here playing games all day and he'll never grow, right? So that's really the new 10-year plan, even though it's not new. And we're essentially 3 years into that plan. This year was a huge year for me for that, okay? And yes, there'll be more in the future that I'm going to be talking about very soon. Some plans in particular for next year, some announcements that I have, some new stuff coming that I think you guys are going to really like. I'm not sure exactly how 100% how it's going to be implemented yet, but I've got things in the works for 2023 based on a lot of things that have happened this year that I think you guys particularly are going to really enjoy. Show me the money. Hello, everyone, and welcome to DSPReacts. This is my very first video here on the channel since rebranding the channel here in February of 2023. So for those who don't know, all right, DSPReacts is my new project for 2023. It's something that I got an idea for last year. Last year, over on my main YouTube and very long-running YouTube channel, DSP Gaming, we tried some different things. I branched out after being a 15-year-long content creator on the internet. I tried doing some React-style content based on your feedback. A lot of the people were saying, hey, just don't play video games anymore. That's the past. You got to branch out. You got to do some different stuff. We like chilling with you. I started a podcast last year over there called the Level 1 Podcast. People love just interacting, talking, and getting my opinions on things. Then I started doing React-style content to things such as documentaries, like the Wings of Redemption documentary, or a documentary about me called Down the Rabbit Hole. And people absolutely, positively loved it. So because of that, I realized something. Man, I've been around for so long. And yes, there's quite a lot of people on the internet who know me as the guy who plays video games and comments on them. But that's not what I want to do for my whole life. Listen, I'm a lifelong gamer. I absolutely love it. I love doing that kind of content, and I want to keep doing it. But I'm getting older. I'm 40 years old, about to be 41. I'm getting to the point in my life where I know I won't be able to just full-time play games all day, every day. I want to do some different stuff. And what's happened is there's been a big movement on YouTube as of late for people to put out a variety of content. Instead of just one style, you got to branch out. And in particular, opinionated content, discussion, and all kinds of reactions and discourse are all the rage on YouTube right now. Show me the money.